Hello everyone, this is David from Automotive Press. I have a 2021 GMC Yukon Denali here, which is a beautiful SUV, a full-size 3-row body-on-frame SUV. But what I want to do today is to actually compare this to the 2023 Toyota Sequoia, which is not out yet. In fact, it's not coming out for at least one more year, sometime in the fall of 2022 as a 2023 model year. So how can I actually do that? Well, I'm going to do this philosophically speaking, taking this 2021 GMC Yukon as a baseline or as a reference point. I'm going to do my usual engineer's audit and do an outside check, the interior check, and we take it out for a drive. But because I know so much about the 2023 Sequoia, which is coming up not too far away, I can do a comparison based on what I know and tell you all about the potential for that Sequoia to compete with this Yukon. So let's start off my usual engineer's audit and comparing this to the Toyota Sequoia. So I have the 2021 Yukon Denali right here, which is a really well done SUV. And I'm going to compare this to all things to do with 2023 Toyota Sequoia. The car is not here physically, it's kind of imagined in my head, but I know so much about the SUV that I think I can do imaginary walk around with this against Sequoia and tell you all the things that I think I might like better on this SUV versus a Sequoia. So let me take you through the exterior walk and then walk you through the inside and then drive this vehicle and tell you more about what the Sequoia might be. One thing to keep in mind though is that the Yukon, along with the Chevrolet counterpart Tahoe, has a lot more choices than most likely what Toyota will offer with the Sequoia. So for example, we have two V8 engines offered in the GMC and a diesel engine. So this one has the turbo diesel engine in this particular unit. The Sequoia though will likely only have one engine choices, potentially two. Right now on the Tundra, they have a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 and then available 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 with a hybrid. So there's two engine choices. I am hearing rumors that the Sequoia will only have one engine choice, which will be the hybrid option. If that is the case, right off the bat, it's an interesting comparison because once again, the domestic automakers provide lots of choices, different lengths. So this comes in this particular standard length, but also there's an XL, provide 3 powertrains, and many different options that you can add, including the fact that Yukon can be had in the standard format and then in this luxury Denali format, whereas Toyota will tend to stay with the tried and true, which is to keep things simple and only offer features and equipment that most people want, but not offer everything, and particularly not offer many body choices or engine choices. So those are some philosophical difference between the two brands. But let me now actually do a walk around and tell you what might be a difference between the Yukon and this, philosophically speaking, Sequoia if it was right beside this Yukon. So let's look at the exterior first. Panels, alignment, and paint job. Generally speaking, General Motors does a really good job with the paint quality. It's always has the right amount of gloss, it's shiny and smooth, and they do a really fantastic job. But the body alignment is where they might fall behind Toyota standard. So in this particular Yukon, for example, generally speaking, the panels look straight and looks all aligned. You can really tell that it's misaligned here. Again, it doesn't mean there is other defects in the truck, but it's indicative of the overall body quality. If this was the new Sequoia, this will be perfectly aligned as I mentioned already, and there will be no difference in the height. Now, again, we don't have a Sequoia here, but I have seen the new Tundra, which will be built in the same factory, and it already has a really perfect alignment, despite the fact that the model I was looking at, it's a prototype model. So that will be a big difference. I think there's no question that overall body integrity, alignment, and so forth will be at least 20 to 30% better in the Toyota Sequoia than it would be in this GMC. But the paint job will be similar. I think, in fact, I would even say that the General Motors paint job has a little bit more gloss than what Toyota has, and it's also a little bit thicker, just a tad thicker than what we often see in Toyota, because Toyota is really concerned about saving weight and saving money by not putting additional paint than it needs to be. So those are some of the things I noticed in terms of the plastic components, the bumper fit, the color between the bumper and the body. It's all good. I think it's actually very well done in this General Motors. You'll be hard pressed to find the difference between this GM and any Toyota product, even if it's a new Sequoia. And all of the gloss trims here, the door trims, all look good. So overall, I give this Denali maybe a B- for quality exterior wise, and Sequoia I would expect to be A or A+. What else can I say about the exterior? I do not expect Toyota to have two versions of the body style, the standard size and the longer XL. That's not going to happen from everything I can gather, unlike GMC and Chevrolet, which offers two versions. I think Toyota will basically create the Sequoia based on the standard length, not the longer version, because this is obviously the more popular model, and Toyota is always going after the highest volume potential. In terms of the wheels and tires, this one all has a 22-inch wheels and tires, Bridgestone tires, which is Alenza. That's the most popular tire for luxury SUV. I can expect almost exact same thing in the Sequoia. It will be 22-inch on the high-end models with probably the same Bridgestone Alenza tires. As you might already know, I have created a few renders for the 2023 Sequoia because I'm trying to speculate what it might look like by basing it on Tundra design. So it's a little hard to say exactly what the Sequoia will look like in about a year's time, but because the Tundra have copied some of the design elements from the GMC trucks, I can expect maybe, just maybe, Toyota will also do the same thing for Sequoia and take some of the design cues from the GMC Yukon and transport it to the Sequoia. Now that's not a sure thing, but that would be my guess. So you can expect a large headlight, much like what we see in Tundra with some modification, and a huge grille, which is also the case in the Tundra, and the same idea will be carried over to Sequoia. So those are some of the design elements I'm expecting to see in Sequoia, and I just finished the kind of exterior walk around. So let me take you to the inside and talk about the difference, good or bad, between a GMC Yukon and the potential new Sequoia interior. Actually, before I talk about the interior, I forgot. I really want to point out the engine bay and talk about the engine again, because that's such an important part of this SUV. So let's take a look at what's under the hood and talk about the choices that we have. So one advantage that the domestic automakers have over the Japanese ones such as Toyota or Nissan is the fact that they have many choices for powertrain. Now, all of the Yukon have the same 10-speed automatic transmission, but when it comes to engine, there are a number of choices, including the one that's in this particular model, which is the Duramax Diesel 3.0 inline turbo diesel 6. It's a kind of mouthful. It has crazy amount of torque and actually very good horsepower as well. It has 277 horsepower and a whopping 460 foot-pounds of torque. Now, just to put things in perspective, that is the exact same amount of torque as the 6.2-liter V8 engine, which is also available in this truck. They both have a 460 foot-pounds of torque. And of course, with diesel, plus the fact that it's turbocharged, it has a really good amount of torque that peaks really early in the RPM curvature. And so you get this amazing pushback to your seat because it has just a really good engine calibration combined with a good transmission. So this is the most difficult challenge for Toyota because General Motors products offer many different engine choices and the buyers still want a V8 engine. So in this case, you get a V8 engine, two choices in fact, and a diesel that offer really good fuel economy and fuel efficiency while still providing amazing amount of torque. So the combination is hard to beat. Would the Sequoia buyers be happy with a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 engine, even if it's in the hybrid format? Well, we don't know that for sure, but we will know very soon because the Tundra, of course, has the same powertrain, and we will find out whether or not the sales will reflect the taste of the buyers. So for now, it's a philosophical comparison of the three engine choices right here in the GM product compared to one or potentially two engine choices in Sequoia. But in the case of Sequoia, it's only the twin turbo V6 with or without hybrid and no V8, no diesel. So those are going to be potentially a difficult thing to figure out. And I do have to admit, all three engines in the GMC Yukon and the Chevy Tahoe have been excellent. I know the reliability might not be there for the gasoline engines, but in terms of the power, the torque, the way that it feels on the road, these V8 engines are absolutely amazing to drive with, and then the diesel have been fantastic. So I know that because I have driven the 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 in the Tundra. I think it's a good engine. It has more than sufficient power. In fact, the hybrid version has more power and torque than even the 6.2 liter V8 engine in the Yukon. But the way it feels is definitely different, and that will be the biggest thing that people have to decide if they still want the V8 engine or they're going to be able to accept the new twin turbo V6 configuration. Now, things like fuel efficiency and fuel economy numbers are obviously not out for this imaginary 2023 Sequoia, so we can't do a direct comparison yet. But let me talk about the interior, what I'm expecting the Sequoia to have, and whether or not it will meet or exceed the expectation I have in comparison to this Yukon Denali. Let's go inside. So now we are inside the 2021 Yukon. I do want to point out that for 2022, they are making a bunch of changes both outside and inside. And here in the interior, they're going to have a new digital cluster and a much improved infotainment system. So those things are also coming ahead. Now, in terms of comparing to the interior of the upcoming 2023 Sequoia, well, we can do a lot of speculation based on what we know of the 2022 Toyota Tundra. They will have the same infotainment system, which should be the 14 inches on the more expensive model, with the full digital cluster also available as an option. And I find that on the new Tundra, the infotainment system is really easy to use. It's something that was designed in-house by Toyota Connected in Texas, and it was first class in terms of navigation and all of the features that I've noticed. But on the General Motors side, it's also a very good design. Generally speaking, I found all GM products to have a very easy to use system for infotainment system, for radio, all that stuff. And also, very interestingly, General Motors always had lots of buttons, as we do in this Yukon. There's a button for everything, almost overwhelmingly so. Even the head-up display can be controlled with a button. And personally, I like that a lot. I really don't like how the manufacturers have moved away from buttons. But thankfully, on the new Sequoia, it should also keep a lot of buttons because the Tundra have many buttons as well. Now, when it comes to interior audit for quality, I did not notice any squeaks or rattle while driving this Yukon. However, if I were to put some pressure on these panels, they make a squeaky noise. A little bit here on the both door panels. If I tap on the dash, a little bit of noise as well. Not so bad here. So it's possible in a few years when you drive this for miles and miles, it might produce some potential squeaks. If you compare that to Toyota Sequoia, again, a 2023 model year one, it should be perfectly made interior-wise, and I have never heard of squeaks and rattles from any of the Toyota products I've driven, so I expect that to be completely free of defects and issues. So those would be some differences. If you're the type of person that's going to be driven crazy by some squeaks and rattles, then yeah, GM product might not be the best one for you. But otherwise, the interior is beautifully designed on this Yukon. I found all the buttons very intuitive. I don't even mind the push and pull control for the transmission shifter. Everything works well. The stereo sounds amazing on this Yukon because this is the top of line model. The leather quality, the stitching, all that looks absolutely amazing on this Yukon, as good as what I saw on the Cadillac Escalade a couple of weeks ago, which is also based on the exact same chassis. So those are some of the comments I have on the interior. I think functionality-wise, both the Sequoia and the Yukon will be very similar. They're going to all offer some of the latest technology and the latest comfort features. This Yukon doesn't offer a massage chair like you did find in the Escalade, so I expect Sequoia to be the same thing as well. In the rear of this Yukon, you also get the large entertainment system, which should be offered in the Sequoia as an option also. So now let's take this thing out for a drive and talk about the way it handles and the way it performs on the road, and speculate what the difference might be between this and the 2023 Toyota Sequoia. When it comes to the driving experience of this Yukon, Toyota is going to have a hard time beating this particular model because the diesel engine on this Yukon is beautifully designed and beautifully engineered and performs flawlessly. I really wished that Toyota would offer the diesel engine, which it does have in Asia, because it will be a really good addition to both the Tundra and upcoming Sequoia. But anyhow, in this particular Yukon, the diesel engine has tremendous amount of torque, so when you step on it, it really goes. I'll show you what I mean by that. Now it's a pretty rainy day today, so it's going to be a bit slippery, but I will step on the gas a little bit to show you the amount of torque that this thing has. So I only step like maybe halfway and the thing just takes off like a rocket ship. This diesel engine is really well engineered, has just the right amount of torque curve. Torque comes on very early in the RPM, and it has a crazy amount of torque. So you can really tell that it has the willingness to go forward and with you just being pushed against the seat. So beautiful engine. I have also driven the two V8 engines, the 5.3 liter V8 and the 6.2 liter V8, and they're both, again, really well engineered. Now there are some reliability issues with the gasoline engines, but I think that's being sorted out now. But the performance-wise, they are really, really good engine. In fact, I love the 6.2 liter V8 engine in GMC products in general. Now, comparing to the Sequoia should offer two engines exactly same as the Tundra, but I'm hearing rumors that it might only offer the hybrid version, so we don't know that yet. But in either case, if it did offer two engines, it will be the 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 with very good power and torque rating, or that same engine with the hybrid. I did drive the twin turbo V6 with the hybrid in Tundra recently, and it does not feel like this diesel or the V8 engines in other GMC Yukon lineup. From our understanding, Toyota engineers tried to mimic the character and the feel of the diesel engine with the new twin turbo V6, but I don't think it feels anywhere close to this particular engine. The diesel engine in this Yukon has a tremendous torque. It has that kind of throaty feel that all diesels have, and you do not get that on the Sequoia. So if you are a type of people who just love the traditional V8 engine or the diesel engines, then you might be disappointed in the new Sequoia that's coming out in about a year's time. But of course, the new Sequoia is still 1 year away, so lots of things can change. So I'll reserve my judgment until such time that I have the Sequoia in my hand right beside this Yukon and do a direct comparison. The last thing I want to talk about is the difference in feel of the steering, the handling, and the suspension between this Yukon and potential new Sequoia. I'm going to have to base my feedback on the Tundra I drove and assume that some of the feeling I have on the Tundra will carry over to the Sequoia, because at this point we're still speculating. Well, I can say is that on the Yukon and the Chevy Tahoe and Escalade I drove recently, it has almost a perfect steering feel. It has just the right amount of weight and heft a good road feel, and I think they have one of the best balanced steering in the industry. In terms of the handling, it's very quick, and it points exactly where you go, and it corners reasonably flat thanks to independent suspension in the back, and in this case we have air suspension also. So the suspension, the ride, and the steering, and even the handling is actually really good in this Yukon, perhaps some of the best in the auto industry, and Toyota will have a bit of a difficult time catching up and matching this performance because of the difference in design and engineering between the two models. So for example, if I were to assume that all things I felt with the Tundra is what I can expect in a Sequoia, well, the Tundra had a really light steering, and I would even say a little bit numb and lacking road feel. So I really hope that is not the steering feel that will be carried over to the Sequoia, but if it does, it's not going to feel exactly the same as this Yukon. I think the Yukon and the GMC products have a better steering feel. Otherwise, they both have 10-speed automatic transmission that should perform flawlessly because it works really well in here and works really well in the new Tundra I drove, which will be carried over to Sequoia. And then the braking are also very solid in this Yukon, and I expect the same in Sequoia. So overall, my only wish list is hopefully Toyota will give a little bit more road feel and provide slightly more heft and the weight to the steering for the new Sequoia, because that is my number one complaint of the new Tundra. So that's all I have for the driving experience and comments, but let me give you a sort of a short summary of what I think of the Yukon versus upcoming 2023 Sequoia. I've already talked about the engine, the suspension, the drive, the exterior, interior, but the most important thing to keep in mind is that if you want the most reliable, most durable SUV, you probably want to stick with the Toyota. GM products have been reasonably good, but not flawless. And so if you want to keep the truck or SUV for 10 years or longer and you want the least amount of problem, please stay with the Toyota products and buy the Sequoia. But if you're the type of person who do not keep the cars much longer than the warranty period, or you're okay to buy an extended warranty, or to take a bit of a risk with the reliability situation, then the Yukon and the Chevy Tahoe are both excellent choices because of the really good powertrain, and personally I really like the way they drive. So those are some of my final comments. I hope this was helpful. As we get closer and closer to the launch of the Sequoia, I will be able to talk about it a lot more, but for now I do want to say how much I love this Yukon because of the way it feels and because the engine choices are excellent, and especially in this diesel format. Wow, this is a really amazing engine. So a lot more to come on my channel. Thank you so much for watching my videos. A lot more to come your way. I'm signing off for now.